What is up, Internet world, and welcome back to Accelerate. My name is Mike, and the man behind the camera is Ian, and today I bring the 2023 BMW X1. This is the xDrive 28i model. They don't make front-wheel drive anymore. That is the past. It is only available in all-wheel drive. There is no X1M just yet, but I hear rumblings that there might be one, which will be so sick. Nonetheless, they do have a bigger motor now, makes a little bit more power, as well as you can get an M performance styling pack, you know, the whole M pack. It's not the full deal, but it gives you visual cues, gives you some fancy adaptive suspension, and of course, paddle shifters on the steering wheel. But anyways, today we have this. This is not an M package, this is just your regular X28i, and we're gonna get deep into it. I'm in the all-new BMW X1 with the brand new updated Miller Cycle 4-cylinder engine that makes 241 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. That is up 13 horsepower from the last motor. Now it's made it to an all-new 7-speed dual-clutch gearbox. So let's see if we can get this thing in the under 6-second range. Flip the ground, here we go, and go. There we go, that's better. All right, whew. Faster shifting. Okay, and we got till, boom, 5.51. That is exactly what I thought I was gonna do. Some vehicles aren't consistent in their launches. When I first got in this thing, I tested it out before I put on camera. I was in sport, but when I was revving it, then I put it in sport and it gave me 6.5. Then I tried it before I actually shot this thing, and then I got 6.1. And I was like, what is going on? There's no paddles, so I'm trying to figure it out. But I did figure it out. I have to put it in sport. As soon as I put in sport, then I gotta go. I cannot wait. So I'll do this again. Okay, build boost. So I guess about 25 an RPM and then let go of the brakes, and see, that did start off the way I wanted to. So it's like you gotta get into it, and as soon as you build up boost, you gotta let go. You can't just sit there and let it putter and then go. So brake, power, and then now, there we go. You can feel it, it's like, the shifting is much better. Boom, there we go, 5.41, what? Oh man, it's getting better and better. So I've read all types of different obviously articles, and I've done some research on this thing, and the best I saw people get was 5.5 and change. I just got 5.41 in the all-new BMW X1. So to the front of the X1, you've got these cool, funky headlights that obviously have BMW's signature DRLs, and then on the bottom here, this is brand new. You have this L-shaped bumper to make it wider from the front end, especially because the X1 is the smallest one you can get in North America on the BMW lineup. They've made the BMW kidney grills larger. They have more style to them now. They're just not as basic. I guess they're trying to pull your eyes away from the actual obnoxiousness that it is. You do have your front camera right there. Underneath you have your Parktronic sensors, and then you have a little bit of cuts and shapes and designs to make this thing look, you know, more sophisticated and edgy, because that's what it's supposed to be, a BMW. You now have updated suspension on both axles. 18-inch wheels are standard, 19s are the upgrade when you get the M package. It is actually 1 inch longer from wheelbase perspective. From here to there, it is 1 inch longer. It also slightly looks a little bit different, especially when you incorporate these rear taillights. And of course, my favorite are these door handles. They're nice and flush and smooth. No more that sticks out. It's so nice and buttery. That is probably my favorite part about this X1, with the exception of all this black trim that starts right here and flows all the way around till the end. Thank God there's no chrome here. All the way up and over, and voila. So just like adaptive cruise control, lane keep, and low speed hands-free driving, the tow hitch or tow availability is actually not going to happen anytime soon. It's going to happen later on in the production of this X1. But for now, we get to look at the back end, and that is these cool rear taillights. I really like these taillights because they're sort of backlit and they're very soft to the eye when you look at it. Anyways, moving up, you do have this extended upper spoiler. It's very long and wide. Obviously, it's color matched with some black, piano black underneath it. Now again, I'm not a big fan of having these wipers there. The wipers need to be hidden underneath, but hey, it is what it is. Moving down, this does have a hatchback style design from here, very, very European. And when you move down, it looks wider and more North American. You do have the X1 badging, this X-Drive 28i, and then again, to match the front, you have this piano black, and then this aluminum type finish on the bottom, and then a little bit more silvery design with those L stops on each corner. So you have L's on all four corners of this X1. So the X1 does have a power lift gate, and there are two buttons on the back. One is to close the lift gate as well as set the height, and the button to the next of it is to lock the door. So when you hit it, keys in your pocket, you can walk away from the vehicle and the vehicle will lock. So let's see how much room we have in the back of this X1. So from the back of the second row, we have just about 3 feet until the front of the sill. And as far as width goes, we have 43 inches. Now there are some storage capabilities of this thing underneath this lowered floor. Look how much space you got there. That is really, really good. There's a ton of room there. And I don't know what you put in it, but you can fit a ton. So let's see how much room you have in there, because this is larger than most vehicles. You have 3 feet wide, and as far as depth, you have just about 9 inches. And as far as, I guess, depth again, you've got 29 inches. So that's a big space. You can fit a ton of stuff in there, probably at least like 15 pairs of shoes. So on either side, you do have a small storage space there with some netting, and here you have a little bit of a deep pocket, and then you have a 12-volt plug right there. That's all you have in the back here, and then you get this little tonneau cover. If it's not in the right spot, it will rattle, so make sure you have it there nice and tight. One sort of unique engineering perspective, at least from my view, is these little tiny clips. Now they go in here and they slide down to lock it in place. That is really, really nice. Most of them just have a little small, like, sort of stringy little net you got to hold on to, and it feels pretty flimsy. This feels really, really solid, and that's a really good piece from BMW. Front seat of the BMW X1. Love it. Nice. Now the front door panel is very similar to the rear one, with the exception this one does have an open wood grain trim that flows all throughout the dash. It is very edgy in this. It's definitely modernized. It has the all-new BMW iDrive 8 system, so no more rotary wheel. It's all touchscreen with this one big glass display. It's nice and curved. And we saw this in the X7. It's really modernized. It's got really funky features in it. We'll get into that in a minute. So let's just talk about aesthetics here at first glance. If we start with the door panel, again, very similar to the back. You do have the stitching now at the top where you don't have that in the back. Again, you have ambient lighting. You have 2 memory seats with the hardened carbon sound system. And then you have your automatic lights off and on. And then mixed materials is really cool. You do have this beige on the bottom. You do have the wood grain, the ambient lighting again. And then moving up, you have your heads-up display with a center speaker. And then moving down, you have one singular vent that's designed for everybody in the cabin, with the exception of the 2 vents that's for the passenger. Kind of an odd style if you ask me, but I guess that's what they went with. And moving down from this lonely vent stuck on an island all by itself is another thing that's going to be stuck all by itself, and that's to charge your phone. Wireless charging is kind of cheap in this thing, and it feels so out of place for a BMW product. So if you want to do it, you take your phone, you pull this little sleeve thing back, you put it in, and then you push this forward. Strange. It's like you're at an amusement park with this little handy thing. Anyways, you've got 2 cup holders behind it. You have 2 USB-Cs, a 12-volt plug, and then you got a ton of storage underneath this, I would say, Kia-inspired center armrest. It's very futuristic, but BMW wasn't the first one to make it. And on this floating center console, you do have your engine start and stop, your 360 cameras, of course your 4-ways, and then your reverse, neutral, drive, and low gears. You also have your modes, which are called My Modes now. And then moving below, you have your auto holds and your volume for your sound system, as well as your mute button. And then you have this little push thing that opens up your center console. And you have a BMW digital key. Yes, welcome to the future, BMW. The only thing that's not good about this is if you live in an area that has a lot of thieves, they can look into your vehicle very, very easily, and you can't really store anything of, value, unless, of course, you put it all in the glove box, which is actually very large. Now onto the steering wheel. BMW does very solid steering wheels, and this is no different. Very easy, big buttons to see. You have your set, your modes, and of course your cruise control. On the right side, you have your volume controls, and then you can switch tracks, your media, and then you have this little button that changes the driver's display in terms of content, layout, and your heads-up stuff. And then of course you want to pick up the phone, you've got this guy, and then your "Hey BMW" or "My BMW," press this button and voila, BMW's voice guidance comes on, and it's really, really good. If you don't believe me, ask anybody that owns a new generation BMW. They've done a really good job with that. All right, let's look at the screen and jump into the HVAC controls first. Now, something interesting about this X1 that is different than the X7, even though that is way more money, that has only one increment for heated steering wheel, and this thing has three. 0, 1, 2, 3. And same with the seats, 3 increments of heated seats. That is pretty cool, but I find the steering wheel really, really nice to have 3 increments of heat, because sometimes it gets way too hot or sometimes there's not enough heat. So nice touch, BMW. Of course, just like the X7, you do have automatic programs, max AC, sync, and pretty straightforward stuff when it comes to how much air you want to blow into your face. Now, the layout on this iDrive 8 has fixed buttons on the left-hand side, which basically give you more widgets on the top, your audio, phone, navigation, and then, of course, CarPlay. But this is what it looks like. You have your nav first, then you have your radio you're listening to, in this specific case, is Sirius XM. Then you have your telephone, personal assistant, your values since individual, basically all your different consumption numbers, how many kilometers you've done in the vehicle. But this is the cool part. Don't worry about the weather. Don't worry about route preview. It's this interior camera. And let's see what we're going to see on the other side. Okay. You can choose to take a single photo by hitting that button. You can hit this button where it says smile. So when you smile, it takes a photo.
Not working.
All right. There it is. It took a photo.
Oh.
There it is. Ha ha. Okay, perfect. And then you have self timer and then burst mode. So all same buttons that we're so used to on the iPhone is right here integrated in the BMW iDrive 8. So again, you have your fixed buttons on the left side here. You have your climate on the bottom. And then on the top, when you pull this down, you have stuff like auto start stop, interior lighting, CarPlay, set favorites, do not disturb, of course, screen off, and then a little bit more widgets on the bottom. So very easy system to use. I think they've done a really, really good job with this BMW iDrive 8 and nothing to really complain about. Back seat of the BMW X1. Now, whenever I review vehicles such as this, anything in the 50K range, I really want to focus on the door panel because that shows build quality. Now, again, this is a BMW, and the first X1s were launched. The best build quality wasn't on the back doors. So let's see how this one goes. Now, when I jump in here, I close the door, listen. Solid. This is what I like. And I know that because when I saw the fit and finish on the door panel itself, I knew that they spent time on making this component just feel good and clean, because that's going to differentiate them from the Kias and the Hyundais. And I know you think I'm crazy, but there's a few pieces in this vehicle that reminds me of the Kia Sportage. Nonetheless, the design in here is very cut, very modern, very clean looking. Take the center console, for example. Older BMWs would just be flat. This one now has an indentation that goes inward that makes this look more luxurious, but also way more futuristic. So let's go back to the door panel here. Now at the top here, you do have the typical rubberized BMW fit and finish on the top. You do have different grills. You have this aluminum on the top, that's Harman Kardon, and then lower you have this plastic, but it looks like it's stitched or woven cotton. That's unique. And then you have the same color of leather that you have on the door panel. And again, this really futuristic design. So when I sit back here, I feel good. Now, as far as headroom goes, I'm 5'9", and this is how much room we have. Lots of space. Cup holders, you do have 2 little cup holders back here. That's pretty straightforward stuff. You do have 2 USB-Cs, of course, 2 vents, and that's about it in terms of venting. You do have a little bit on your feet, but mainly most of the venting back here is going to come from these 2 vents there. As far as legroom goes, it's decent. I wouldn't say it's huge, but again, this is an X1, and this is definitely bigger than the first generation X1. I do have 3 full-size headrests, and I'm glad that they put a panoramic sunroof that goes all the way to right behind my head. Some brands out there make a panoramic sunroof, but it stops like right here, and it still feels claustrophobic, but this one does not, even though this does have a black headliner. Now, one thing I want to point out with this and an Audi Q3 is that when you get into it, the actual floor is lower than most vehicles. You can really see the depth. There's probably about 6 inches of depth when I put my feet into the actual cabin. You don't really see that in vehicles. You see probably about 3 or 4 inches, but this one has the extra depth. And I saw that again in the Audi Q3 and this, and they're just trying to make it more spacious by adding a little bit more depth to the floor of the vehicle. One thing about smaller vehicles is obviously the blind spots are a lot less. This is so small, there is no blind spots whatsoever. It's not super small, but it's small enough to be BMW's smallest SUV, and it's large enough to be good enough for 5 humans. How does it handle? Well, it's small, light, and nimble, so you can obviously expect it to handle really, really well. Is it aggressive to accelerate? It's good, it feels solid, but the more impressive part is the pedal feel and the brakes. The brakes feel really good, and just when I'm on it, the feedback is really strong. There's a little bit of delay when I'm on the throttle, but that is because just vehicles in 2023, they're trying to make them smoother, and obviously four-bangers don't have the umph right off the bat like a 6 does, or something that has some electrification behind it, because this doesn't have either of that. One thing that's interesting, when I look at my side mirror, it's very flat. Everything's really flush and smooth. It looks like I'm in a sedan, but then when I'm sitting here, I know I'm sitting a little bit higher, so I'm in an SUV, a baby SUV, not a full-fledged, heavy-duty, sitting above the world type truck height position. This is more kind of in the middle, a good mix, I think. All in all, I'm happy with this BMW X1. I'm glad that BMW Canada decided to give me one to review, and I hope you like this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.